the biggest difference between those who, whatever definition somebody would like to use, succeed and those who don't is really perseverance. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because there's lots of examples of the struggle and the challenge. And I think sometimes God uses the challenge that we're presently facing to prepare us for maybe the dream we don't even have yet, So that doesn't mean we failed at what we did. It just means without that, we could have never succeeded over here. Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling podcast. We once again have gathered together to partner with you to reach your potential. That is our heart. I believe with all that I have that you are unique and that you got skills and you've had experiences and abilities, and God wants to do a lot more maybe than you realize. So we want to build a sense of community. That's why we do the podcast. That's the reason we do the live stream. It's the reason we wrote the book, all those kind of things. So hey, if you hear something that makes a difference, do me a favor, share it with somebody else that might need to hear the same thing. And if you got a question, leave a comment, because we'd love to hear what you think about what we're doing. Today, once again, I have a guest, and this is a guest I'm very excited about because, I get to talk to a lot of interesting people who have done a lot of interesting things, and this is no different. But this is also someone that I've known for quite a while, probably, if not one of the kindest people that I know. And you know how there's those folks that when you see them, you get that sense of encouragement just by seeing them? Well, today's guest is one of those people. I'm sure you're going to feel the same way. And her name is Clasi Beason. Thank you for being here today.
It's such an honor and joy and pleasure to be here with you, Pastor Troy, and to be back in my forever home Potential Church. I'm just so honored to be here.
Well, it's exciting to have you. And, the other day I mentioned it to you. And so there's a lot I want to talk about, because you say, being back, but you went out and currently live out in LA pursuing a dream. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about where you grew up and what life was like for little Clasi.
Oh, it was something. I am born and raised in South Florida. And I must say that my childhood was very unique in that it wasn't very glamorous. Now, I had a bit of a tumultuous inner world just to go there. So facing a lot of abuse in my regular life. And I think that as an actor, where my journey began is I was having what I now understand is depression, all the D's, dyslexia. I couldn't quite read because my brain was scattered, and dysmorphia with myself, and disassociation, which is where your body's here, but your mind is elsewhere. It's almost an escapism. And all of those things I realized my response to it was in school, I would look at what the other children were doing, and I'm like, this is what a normal kid is like. I don't know if I really understood how abnormal my life was, but I'm looking at the other kids and I would do what they do. I would kind of assimilate. And later on in therapy, which I didn't pursue until I was in my 20s, I understood that's where that gift of acting began. Around 13, 15, by that time, I'd actually gotten to the point where I was suicidal, did not have any peace in my soul. And the power of the local church in my life has meant absolutely, absolutely everything, because I just walked into a church at 13 and felt without anything happening. All I did was just walk in. The service hadn't begun. The music hadn't started. But I felt this peace, this turmoil that was inside lift off of my inner world. That is like the power of what God's presence can just be like, just being in an atmosphere where He is and where of community of faith is. And that has been what has marked my life, marked my dreams. It set me on the trajectory and led me to my potential church.
So, tell us about when you trusted Christ and what was going on and what happened as a result.
It was that very day. I remember going into that church and feeling lifted. It happened that my mom, who didn't know what I was going through, because apparently I was a very good actor, she invited me to go to a play. So it just so happened to be what would be my future world. I played violin, and I was always in arts and in theater and went to school for that, played violin, and acted and started officially acting in my later years. And at the end of that play, I walked forward and I knew that it was something. They invited us to pray and receive Christ. And I don't know if I fully understood. I grew up in church. My family grew up. We had a family church. So I was always in that Christian environment. I knew who Jesus was, but I didn't know that he had power to affect your inner world. Like, I think about the woman at the well. She's probably beautiful on the outside. I mean, she was married 5 times, so I imagine she was good looking and probably looked pinned together. But Jesus peeled back those inner layers of what was happening within her soul and was able to speak to that and bring life to that. And that's what I experienced. So that day I trusted Christ, and I went for it and kept allowing the community was a big part, and reading the word and how that lifted all of the heaviness, gives us a garment of praise or like a spirit of despair.
So you start the journey with Christ, and then you end up being here at Potential, being on the team and part of ministry, and then you leave to go to LA. And so let's go back when you were acting. You said as a child, but the difference between what was going on the inside and the outside. When did you start to dream of that as a dream, not just unique or I'm going to pursue what's in front of me, but as far as this could be something I do as a profession?
It did not hit me until about 25, well into my time at Potential as a staff. I thought my life and career would look a certain way. I always imagined myself just being in full-time ministry forever. And God started to highlight this thing for me that's been, as I started to understand myself and who he's created me to be, Potential is what really birthed those things and helped me to grow. I remember the day I walked in, I was invited to be a part of the worship team for violin. And I came and started listening to the messages, and I was so deeply challenged by the things that you said. And I was so enamored by the idea that when I sat in the Next Steps class, and they said, we are going to help you reach your potential in every area of your life. I'm like, how could you promise perfect strangers that? I thought that was so outlandish. I was like, what a promise to me. Wait, what happens if I don't? Like, has anybody filed a lawsuit? Like, what happens? And the faithfulness to the local church really has brought those things about. So about 25, it took me about a couple of years after that. I did some local plays. Then I made the leap to LA. But I owe understanding that I was created on purpose to do something of significance. All of those things, the discipline of what it would take to pursue this kind of career that has absolutely no guarantee of success, no matter how hard you work.
Yeah.
And so I have everything I have is in debt to Potential and what I've learned here as a leader, as a human being, as a potential wife and potential mother, and all of those things. It couldn't be more grateful for pastor staff and for yourself and for Potential Church.
It's very kind. So you said a couple of years, maybe you did some, I remember when you were doing the local plays and all those kind of things. And I think there's always a lot of folks right there, right? Like, I've got something in my heart, but there's going to have to be a step, how did you manage that? How did you work through, okay, now this is what I need to do, and the courage to, I mean, California is all the way on the other side of the country from where you are and where you grew up. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
I felt I felt a little guilt for a while because I'm like, one, I feel that acting is very impractical and I love to be practical and structured. And so responding yes to what God has called or asked of me in that regard took me some time of like, there's absolutely no way he could want me to go. I thought originally I would be in New York. So I pushed for New York and all of my New York doors closed, all the apartments, all the jobs, anything that I tried to get myself into the state failed. But all of the California doors flew open and I was asking whether God was leading me toward that. And I feel that he was. And if I would have just forced New York to happen, I would have been there during the pandemic. And I am very glad that I was in Los Angeles during the pandemic.
Well, you left to go to California and pursue this, and we'll talk about some of that. But I think along the way, when you come back and you visit, we all get to celebrate what you're doing. We get to be aware of, what's going on and pray for you. And, a lot of times that's the most difficult part for folks is God does something new in their heart and there's impact, right? If we've got a strong relationship and all of a sudden I'm going to go pursue something different. So did you intentionally do some things that allowed you to pursue your dream on the other side of the country and yet, continue to have strong relationships and healthy relationships with so many people who look forward to seeing you, when you come back, as opposed to some other emotion that often we get so excited about where we're going, we forget about where we've been. And so did you intentionally do that? How did you process that?
Very much so. When I say that Pastor Steph and yourself have been very foundational voices of wisdom and kindness and just marking the way for growth and personal growth and challenging me to live with courage. I felt I had your blessing and I felt that it was a challenge from God. It wasn't me just wanting to, fly by the seat of my pants. And I really am what I wanted to do was know that I was doing what I felt God really wanted me to do. And so I was like, what am I going to do without my church? I can't just move the whole church with me. But the blessing of like Los Angeles for me was that I had chosen Mosaic because Pastor Erwin had come and spoken here. And this was so I knew that was a community that I could trust because Potential is a community that I have grown in and that I trust here. So it felt more like I was expanding my community with a leader that I know you believe in. And that gave me so much more comfort and courage. So I told myself, if I go to LA because I was very afraid of doing it and going where, my family is not, no one else is, then I'm going to go to that church. I'm going to go to this church, Mosaic, where we've already read so many of Pastor Owen's books through our book studies here at Potential. I'm going to go there, and whether I make no friends or 1,000 friends, I'm going to stick it out. I'm not going, whether I like it or not having anybody that I really knew there. I'd reached out and tried to get some Bible studies in line or see kind of how I can pre-engage with the community, but I had nothing really to go on other than I made a choice because I know it's already a part of the community that I'm in. So I think of constantly bridging, like for me, it's like a continuation of the same chapter in my mind. And I think about honoring my foundation, my family here at Potential as well. It's something that is kind of
And I think a lot of times that's a mistake we make. We get so focused on one aspect of our life that we're pursuing, whether that's moving or changing jobs or whatever, that we're not intentionally preparing for the other aspects of our lives. Whether in this case we're talking about spiritually, which is often the one that gets neglected. I'll find a church when I get there, and then months go, and we drift away. But I think the same thing can happen relationally. If a family moves, there's an impact on everybody. And often we don't think about and then try to get ahead of that. Because I know there are folks listening that are, they're excited about where they're going and that new job or new house or whatever it is, but they forget about how it impacts all the other areas of their life. So you get to LA. What's the first thing that surprised, because you had to have, some kind of picture in your mind of what it was going to be like. So what's the first thing that kind of surprised you?
I felt very small going to LA. I was getting used to people's personalities and the way people communicate over there. Let's do lunch just means like have a good day. It doesn't mean that we're actually going to go somewhere and have a sandwich. So kind of understanding the flow of how people work and then live and dress over there was a little bit of a shock to me. But I for the most part, enjoyed it. I thought I would have a harder time assimilating, but it was it was surprisingly kind of easier to transition. Really making the deeper friendships. It's very easy to meet people, but making those deeper friendships that I feel like I'd want to have in my life, that was part that took more time.
Yeah. So you get there and you got to do life, got to work and eat and all those things. So the acting journey, those first 6 months, was it discouraging? Was it, did you make more progress than you thought? Or was it exactly kind of what you were thinking and you were ready for it? What was those first several months like?
As far as the work of it, I didn't know how long it would take for me to have something that could sustain me financially. Because I think actors, at least 90% of us are unemployed. 98% of us are unemployed at any given time. So even when you have employment, it is a temporary assignment. But I got my union credits like right away. So that was surprising to me. I think that happened in under a year. And once you have a certain amount of union credits, you can then join the union. I got to spend a lot of time on set in various TV shows, projects that I thought were cool. I got to do short films. So I thought that I so enjoyed the work that I wasn't expecting much out of it. And I wasn't expecting a huge return that I would be a working actress right away. I did a lot of studying, training. I trained with Broadway stars. I trained. And so I think that part was the enjoyable part of it. I think I kind of was afraid of the industry and that there were a lot of roles that I knew I wouldn't want to accept. So I think I lost a lot of courage along the way. I think that was, something that has been a big challenge for me. So it's like I've still gotten beautiful work, and I've gotten to use my gifts in different ways than I would have expected for the benefit of children, like teaching theater at a local school through creative writing in a project with Ink called Ink Theater, led by Rachel Kaiser. Hello. And so I feel like I'm kind of going very broad, but I was happy to have the work, but also afraid of going forward in the work.
Right.
Not really knowing how to navigate the world.
Because, we've had over the years several folks actually, whether it be in music, mostly in music, go out to LA or to New York to pursue. Often it distracts them, especially spiritually, where they kind of get off in another track. How hard or how difficult has that been for you to kind of stay focused on the spiritual side of your life in the midst of pursuing your dream in an industry that's not necessarily known for its spiritual value or its morality in some ways, you might say. So how have you kept the course?
I have relied, and maybe it's because I experienced so much personal healing and catharsis through the local church. And I've always had such a beautiful understanding of what the local church was by being um, at Potential. So had that as my Mosaic community. I jumped in. I was like, I'm not going to miss it. Put me on a team. By the second week, I was on the parking team. Pastor Joy, I started on the parking team like you. So it was pretty non-negotiable. It looked different during the pandemic because we were all remote. Mosaic was closed for about 18 months.
Yeah.
So, but I still had those opportunities to serve, and we pressed in and joined started to join the kids team, and that's right when we got shut down. But I looked for the community there. I knew I needed it. I have gotten some of the most beautiful friendships from the community of Mosaic. So some of the most awesome opportunities that I didn't think would happen, like being able to go and serve in Africa, where I taught acting and theater to kids with Pastor Kim and the Mosaic Education Initiative team, middle school down there. And so I knew I needed that. I would not have made it probably past a year without the grounding and the love and the beautiful experience that I got to embrace, Mosaic.
Yeah, and I just encourage anybody that's watching or listening, it's so easy to undervalue, or to think about how we're all easily impacted by what's going on around us if we're not connected and encouraged and inspired. And there's accountability that comes with that as well. Once you engage, whatever the commitment is, whether it's the parking lot or whether it's with the children, it's like somebody's expecting me to be there, and I want to keep that commitment. And isn't it amazing how, serving in the parking lot can keep you connected in relationships and have such a bigger impact on your life than just directing a car?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. It's really something how I'm on the hospitality team lately, but all of the things the community that comes from it and the life that comes from it. And especially when it's a tough weekend, it's a harder weekend to serve, pressing in brings so much benefit to your life, and then having that opportunity to serve others. And it's been really cool. It's been awesome. I mean, I feel like I'm almost speechless. It's so hard to explain. The podcast I listened to with Kendrick, the Kendrick brother. Kendrick. His first name is escaping me right now.
Yes, from the movie Forged.
Yes, beautiful. The Forged is a really beautiful film, but I thought it did a really good job of illustrating the power of discipleship and how community can truly change your life, and making that decision to be faithful to the local church, regardless of whether you feel like it, will have benefits that go into every area of your life and will outlast you, go generations. That's something that I really understood at Potential. So I knew it was something that I needed. And when I get married and such, I want to find someone who is, who loves Jesus, who was in that community like me. So,
is there any place people should send their applications if they want to apply for that position?
Well, they know where to find me. I'm on Mosaic.
There you go. That's a good advertisement. Yeah, one of the things I think with any kind of success, and especially because, acting, we don't hear a lot of stories about the guy that went into some other profession, but we hear a lot of the acting stories because celebrities will tell us how they started. But like every other profession, discouragement is always an enemy. It's always easier to give up or to quit on difficult days than it is to continue to keep moving. Have you experienced many of those times where you kind of step back and you think, is this worth it? Is this what I want to continue to pursue? Or how have you dealt with discouragement?
Yes, definitely being in survival mode there, because it's like everything, as much as I plan to have roommates and not have something like just my own room, my own parking space, these things have become luxuries in LA, things that I just never thought would be luxuries. And then I thought I knew how to be broke. When I got there, I realized I didn't know very well how to be broke. But yes, the loss of belief in myself
Mm.
was something that caused a lot of discouragement for me, and just being afraid to keep pressing forward in it, wondering like, will this overwhelm me? Will this,
Mm.
is there a place for me in the industry? Is some of the things that I battled against and wondered. But I have such a deep love for the craft, and every time I feel like God would either use a thing or a person or a moment, or He would just kind of whisper to me like, "This is a calling that I have for you." That's kind of what would just keep me there, if not,
Right.
having quit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially it's always, I mean, you could always come home. I mean, and because that's an option, it makes sometimes, which is a great option to have. I mean, in the sense to know you have a family and a community that cares about you, but it also, it's like they talk about all the books, burn the ships when you get there, in the sense to continue to persevere. So let's talk the last few minutes here. So you go on an audition, right? Is that what they're called?
Yes.
And what kind of mindset? I mean, walk us. What's that like?
Extreme focus, especially when you're in a room where a bunch of different people are in for the same role, and you see how people psych themselves up, or maybe they feel confident enough in what they've prepared that they're trying to send different kind of energies your way. So extreme focus and humility. And I'd like to take the scripts and just kind of I go through them, and I just look for calm. Really, it's I look to tell the story. When you go in, they say you don't book the job, you book the people, you book the room. So that you might be remembered for something else, because there's a lot of reasons, moving parts, and reasons why you may not get a role, but um, that extreme focus and the ability to tune things out, because a set generally is I am in this created reality, and there are like 200 people maybe dressed in black doing all sorts of things in the background behind me. So that intense focus and commitment to it, and the losing of yourself is really what makes it so cool and exciting. But yes, you just have to be able to tune everything and everyone out and not let it get into your head and in your spirit, so that you go in there and you're not there.
Right. So you walk in, and after, so I guess some kind of holding area, depending on what kind of audition it is. Well, let me ask you about those people first. So you walk in, you got all these folks, and you had mentioned a little bit. Do you feel, is there a competitive feeling in that room, or is there a community, like we're all in it and somebody's going to get it? Or what kind of, when you walk into that room, what's the emotional feeling?
I feel like each one has been unique, so that you do feel a sense of both, and that's where the tuning everybody out. I try not to have too much conversation, and just give off that. Listen, I wish you the best. That humility, that I don't want anybody to feel intimidated by me, but I have felt where people are like, no, 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 and going through all of their things, and but if you have that kind of spirit, you're probably, even if you do get far, how can you really enjoy it?
Right.
Uh, but yes, I'm usually trying not to wear myself out too with the work, because when I read a script, um, part of what my process is I'll see certain parts. Like there was one audition that I really enjoyed doing, and it was a 22-year-old blind girl, lady, young woman, who was at the end of her rope, was attempting suicide, and she's just going through these moments that she thinks will be her last, and she has an encounter with an angel in her room, and it lifts her up enough that she continues and can keep going. And when I think about it, I read through the script and the pages. When I practiced for that audition, I had like I'd run through it so much and cried so much that the next day I was out of water. So basic things like staying hydrated and just being calm and being, having myself ready for the work is what I'm trying to do in the audition room, and trying not to think about who's there. It is a challenge, but I'm trying not to. It's like, when to think about, oh, she look great. And I like what she's wearing. I like her hair. But yes, that intense focus is.
So then you walk into the room where you're going to do the audition. And again, I've never done this. So in my mind, you said, you got all the folks doing the stuff. And then you have whoever's making the decision about whether you're going to get the role. And all of these people have been through this 100 times, I would assume. You know what I mean? For different whatever, right? So it's not a special moment for them. And again, I'm sure all of you as actors and actresses have been through lots of auditions, but still there's a lot riding. Like you said, 90 whatever percent are out of work at one time. So, as far as your career, as far as your what you're pursuing, that would be challenging because, you're walking into a room where there's not a lot of expectation per se. You know what I mean? They're doing their thing, and you're the next one on the list. So as to because you're acting, so you're not just here doing this. You're being whatever you're supposed to be, which takes great confidence. So does that bother you at all? Or, are you past that? You learn to get past that? Because I know the folks that are listening, they're walking into boardrooms, they're walking into classrooms, we're all doing something. And there's a tendency to feel that, not to lose confidence, I guess would be the word.
Yes, having that, I think it's the going into the mode, even preparing for this particular interview. I can't say that it was, I was without nerves. And I told Jesus night before last, I said, okay, I'm about to go into something that is nerve-wracking for me. And I know that this is something that you have designed for me to do. I believe that, Pastor Troy was led of God to do this. So I am going to put it on your shoulders. I want to say what you want me to say. And I ask for full access to myself before every audition, full access to my best self. Very selective about what I let in and who I speak to before an audition. But asking God to lift the nerves and bring the focus and the beauty of the work, bring the story, fill me up with that, and meet my preparation and bless it. And when I get in the room, like right now, I don't feel the nerves in my body, but I'd made a decision 2 days ago, because normally I'd go in a thought spiral. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? I might have done 6 or 7 hours of typing up my story and every aspect of what thought you might ask me about. That might have happened. But I still wanted to just put that back on God's shoulders and say, you created me. You gave me this gift. And now I'm going to, rather than put confidence in myself, I'm going to put my confidence in you and ask you to lead me and have me not get in the way by allowing my fears and my doubts and my insecurities that I have piled up to break what could be something beautiful in my life.
So it's very intentional. You're not just walking into a room and dealing with whatever emotions that hit you in that moment. You're preparing for them. How about, because we all get told no at times, how do you deal with that, where it's like they didn't choose you, they chose someone else emotionally, and then get back up and say, I can do this, and go after the next one?
I try to think of, I'm just here to give you what I have and to put it away. There are times though where it was something I really wanted and I let my mind get ahead of me like, oh, I would do this and if I had the role. And so there have been roles that I've been very disappointed over not getting. But it's that love of the work that keeps it kind of going. But yes, they hurt my feelings.
Yes.
At
Well,
times.
I mean, I think, self-doubt is so easily stepped into for all of us.
Yeah.
And to continue to be able to, keep pursuing the dream. Because I believe, with all my heart that, the biggest difference between those who, whatever definition somebody would like to use, succeed and those who don't is really perseverance. That is to continue to believe that God's going to do what he's put on our heart. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because there's lots of examples of the struggle and the challenge, and it doesn't mean that he's not using. I think sometimes God uses the challenge that we're presently facing to prepare us for maybe the dream we don't even have yet. So that doesn't mean we failed at what we did. It just means without that, we could have never succeeded over here. That happens for a lot of people in a million different things. I mean, I thought I was going to be a coach. So I played basketball. I went to school. I did all of that. And it doesn't mean that because I didn't become a coach, that I failed. It just means that God used all that in preparation, because pastoring wasn't something that I ever thought about, until God nudged my heart in that direction. So I think, one of the things that you've shared with us is just that sense of intentionality, as opposed to just, walking through life, totally unprepared when we don't have to.
Oh, yes. And do you find that you use all of the things that God has put into your life through the discipline that you built as a coach and in your time with basketball, in your now teaching and
I believe that all that I learned has helped me be better at what I am. I do think the challenge is the temptation to go do what you're more confident in. When God, for me now, I've done ministry for a while. So, but that since I'm doing something I didn't, I had plays for basketball. I had all this stuff planned out and had a great confidence. I had success, playing. So I thought, this, and so ministry was brand new at the beginning. And even today, when it doesn't go well, you're like, so there's always that temptation of, well, I could do that. That doesn't mean I wouldn't fail in that, but it's the grass is always greener on the other side. And I think it's important for us to think about, even as we're progressing, to me, it's like you can always come home. That's a great value, but it's also a temptation that's always going to be there.
my mom would love that. Oh, you could always just act here.
Right, exactly. And so, and I would imagine that at times that's not a temptation at all. And at times it's like, well, maybe that is what I'm supposed to be or do. And only you and, the leading of God's Spirit know, if you came to me and said, well, you think I should just come back? It's like, no, you know what I mean? And it demands that, that we walk with God so we can hear him.
Yes.
Because regret's a terrible emotion.
Yes. And I also want to make good on all of the investment that people have poured into me, all of that belief. I understood that I had a purpose and a calling and a work to do at Potential. That's one of the things that I'd gained. And so I don't want to give up and turn back. It's one of the things that I noticed that you mentioned in this book, Potential, which everybody should read because it's really awesome, is that you made it difficult to go back from Arkansas. And so I'm glad that I'm on the other side because it is difficult to come back. And if I did come back now, it would take as much effort as it would and energy as it would to stay. So we're going to finish the course and get a film role this year.
And so Are you on social media?
I am Klaus.create.
So I encourage everybody to follow you so that when you get that big role and we're reading about you and all of those kind of things, that we can go back and we can hear what you said before it happened. Because I think so many times we hear from people, it's like as a pastor, a lot of times I'll hear folks who, maybe a pastor, and I remember especially when I first started the church, who had thousands of people coming to their church at the time. And, we had, when we, I don't know, 50. And it's like, they would say, it's not about how many people are coming. And it's like, yeah, but you already have all those people coming. You know what I mean? It's one thing if I say that at 50, but you, so I think there's great power in what you've said today for anybody listening anytime, but especially to be able to get in the time machine and come back and hear, this is not something you're saying after the fact, but this is something you're saying along the journey. And I would say to you, we believe in you and we are excited about your future and very, very thankful for your spirit, your heart, your faithfulness, and your commitment. And anything we can do, let us know.
Oh, it's been such an honor to have shared my story today. And I just could not be more grateful for what potential has imparted into my life, into the lives of my families, and the gift that potential has given me to expand my community, to be at Mosaic. And I'm just incredibly grateful for everything. Everything is different and brighter and more beautiful than what it would have been in my life and for the life of my family, future family, had we not been faithful these years. So I'm just very grateful, and I'll be in service to potential for all my days.
Well, thank you for that. And Clasi's leaving tomorrow to go back out to LA and pursue all that God has for her, not only as an actress, but as a Christ follower, as a friend, and as a future bride one day, right? Anyways, guys, I am so glad you tuned in today. Thanks so much. I know you've been encouraged, and don't keep it to yourself. It's important to share. It's just a click of a button, and somebody might whose life might be radically transformed just by listening to Clasi's journey and what God's done in her life. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Hey, have you got a comment, a thought? Maybe you've got a question about your journey, or even about acting. Like I said, Clasi's taught on other continents, actually. So I'm sure she'd be a great partner along the way. Hey, we love you guys. It is an honor always to hang out. Remember, you were created for greatness. You have amazing potential. And we'll catch you next time right here on the Troy Gramling Podcast. God bless and have a good day. Wait, before you go, if you're enjoying our content, check out this interview or this one here. They're both really good. And don't forget, subscribe. It's really important. We'll see you next time.